Chances are if that you clicked on this video, you already know about Persona 3 Reload, so the game needs no introduction. But is it possible to beat this game while only using Augie spells? The rules for this challenge are pretty simple. Rule 1, I can only attack with Augie spells or other fire-based magic. Rule 2, other than fire magic, I can buff, debuff, and heal. Rule 3, I can only use theurgies that either buff, debuff, heal, or use fire magic. And finally, rule number 4, I must beat this challenge on hard mode. So yeah, pretty easy to remember. If you think this video concept is interesting and you want to see me do it in other Persona games, feel free to subscribe. But now, with that all being said, the game starts off as normal. I meet Pink Girl and Red Girl, and I ask them why they both have loaded firearms with them. Then the next day I start my perfectly normal high school life, and after failing to hit on my teacher, I meet Junpei. And even though I won't be using physical moves during this run, he'll still come in handy. Then I go back to my dorm, get spied on in my sleep, only for a monster to attack the dorm next night. So me and Yukari, that's the Pink Girl's real name, escape through the roof of the building. But the monster thing can of course climb to the top of the roof and completely obliterates Yukari with a single hit. So then a little kid tells me to do something that's not really allowed on YouTube, but when I do it, I awaken to the power of Persona and summon Orpheus. Now for my first battle, it's pretty simple. The enemies are weak to Augie, the only magic I'm allowed to use, so it's a pretty easy first fight. The only problem is that after the fight, I get hospitalized for a week straight, so maybe it wasn't an easy fight after all. Now that I'm awake, I'm forced to join the group that fights these monsters, aka Shadows, in a plan to eliminate the Dark Hour, a mysterious 25th hour of the day that only Persona users can survive. And because I can't say no, I join, and this starts the full social link. And again, Persona 3 social links don't really have any other benefit other than giving fused Personas more XP, as well as it also unlocks a handful of Personas. So I won't be doing much of them, but there are two in mind that I want to do. Also, Junpei's here now. Yippee! So now I can explore Tartarus, aka Grind Central Station. But on the plus side, I get to be the leader, because I just have that dog in me, you know? The first time in Tartarus is just a tutorial on how battling works, how to strike an enemy's weakness, and what shuffle time is, so nothing groundbreaking happens. Well, other than the fact that the game forces me to use Bufu, sadly killing my run from the get-go. But if you guys are willing to ignore that, then so am I. Now, Tartarus has mini-bosses that range from very easy to insanely time-consuming. But for my first boss fight, both enemies are weak to fire, so I hit them with fire. Pretty simple stuff, right? Then the next day, I start the Magician social link with Kenji, which I'll finish later on in a challenge. But for now, the next boss fight in Tardus is calling my name. Here, 2 out of the 3 enemies are weak to fire, but as for the third guy, he resists it, so I'm only able to do about piss worth of damage to him. But once I finish off the little grabby hands, I shift my focus onto the big guy. Lucky enough, the Nekomata I fused came with Racunda, so now instead of dealing 16 HP every time I hit, I can now do 23. Yeah, this challenge is going to take a while before he gets off the ground. So I continue to attack with Junpei and Makoto until only after 10 minutes the shadow goes down. The next day, instead of doing social links, I decide to eat some seafood to boost my intelligence, because that's how it works. But the reason why I do this is because by doing better on tests and exams, Mitsuru will give you stat boosting cards for you and your party members' personas. As for the next Tardus boss, it doesn't resist fire, but it does have the move Garu, aka Junpei's weakness. So for most of this fight, I'm stuck guarding with him, which leaves Makoto attacking it by himself. Luckily, Orpheus learns Tarunda to lower the foe's attack, but by using it, it means I can't attack for a turn. And even though this guy doesn't resist fire, the fight still takes longer because of his Garu magic. And as every SMT fan knows, the longer you stay in a fight, the more likely you are to lose. But this is Persona 3 Reload. Those rules don't apply here, so I managed to beat him on my first go around. After that, I reached the first border floor of Tardus, a stopping point where in order to continue, you first need to defeat the main bosses of the game. But I decide to grind a bit more, so I get to level 12. The reason why is because I want to fuse a slime for the next Tartarus boss. You'll figure out why later on. But for now, during my free time, I work hard by eating seafood and by getting a minimum wage job. But when I'm not doing those things, I'm gaming at the arcade, because by playing certain games, your persona's stats will increase by 3 points. But soon, the first full moon of the game hits. hits, and it's time to fight the first story boss of the game, the Priestess arcana. And to be honest, I'm going into this fight a little nervous, because the main gimmick of this boss is that it's going to lower the given time you have to fight it. But after lowering its defense with Nekomata and landing a single Agi, it turns out I overestimated this fight. It only lands one attacking move on me, that being its special Bufu move. Then it just lowers my time, summons some guys, and lowers the time again, then perishes. Turns out my time in Grinderous was spent well, so I go back to my normal life now. But now Elizabeth wants me to do some requests, and the reason why I do these is because I want a certain persona. And speaking of personas I want, let me introduce you to episode links. Persona 3 Reload's way of incorporating the main male cast of Persona 3 into social link form, because we didn't get FemC, may she rest in peace. But just like a social link, by completing episode links, you unlock a special persona. So for this challenge in particular, I want to complete Junpei's link. Also right before the exams, I get to rank 3 in my academics. So I make the top marks in my grade easily and get the aforementioned stat cards. But after the exams, we find out about a new persona user, Fuka Yamagishi. But she's MIA at the moment, so yeah. But speaking of the team, Akihiko is fully healed from his injury. So I get a 4th teammate, and with him I face the next Tardus boss. Now as you remembered, I really wanted a slime for this fight. That's because this is the first enemy of the game that drains fire. And the only way to beat it, as well as the rest of the game, is with break moves. Break moves aren't really that good if you play the game normally, but if you're like me, God I hope not, and do a challenge like this, they'll become your best friend. What they do is they'll allow you to hit an enemy with magic that they normally would resist, block, or drain. And Slime learns Fire Break at level 15. My first course of action was to get rid of the enemies that didn't drain fire, so it was still up to Junpei and Makoto to attack while Yukari healed. But now with Akihiko on my team, I had another person who could heal, as well as someone who could lower the enemy's attack. I got through the first 2 enemies pretty fairly, but as I got down to the one that drained fire, I started to run out of SP. But luckily for me, I had a bunch of soul drops I got from grinding, as well as the fact that Agi only cost 3 SP in this game made the fight a bit easier. And with enough time and patience, the Will-O-Wisp Raven went down. And with that fight out of the way, I'm gonna stop talking about the Tardus bosses, because if I were to mention every single one, this video would be multiple hours long. And I really don't think you guys want to hear about my dastardly duel against Grievous table. Plus, if I'm being honest, the bosses only get easier from here. If I manage to beat the Clairvoyant Relic in one go, that probably means I'm safe for now. Also, you already know how I beat them. It's in the title of the video. Once again, I reach the border floor of Tartarus, and as I wait for it to open, I fuse an Oberon to use as my next persona. But other than my job in seafood, I buff the hell out of my persona's magic by playing my favorite game, Edgar's House of Fortune. I also stock up on SP healing items at the vending machine. They only heal 5 SP, and you can only get 6 items per week, but I mean, it's better than nothing. Now, after a few weeks, we learn why Fuka went missing. It's because this girl literally locked her up in a gym closet. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not bullying anymore. It's more like kidnapping. Sorta. Kinda. I know it's probably illegal though, but anyway, we figure out that she's probably lost in tartar sauce. So we enter the same way she did, and lo and behold, we found her. But uh-oh, full moon, you know what that means. But luckily the shadows come to us this time. But because of that, I don't get to use Yukari in this fight. Also, Fuka awakens to her persona. That's probably important to mention, but this fight was just like the Priestess one, pretty easy. The Empress and Emperor will occasionally swap around their weaknesses to make it harder to hit them, but it doesn't matter because I have Fire Break. I get lucky enough to have the Emperor's weakness be fire from the start, so he was no problem at all to deal with. But as for the Empress, she was easy, but not as easy as the Emperor. The only problem was that she was a little bit tankier than the Emperor, but with Oberon's grossly high magic stat, it made the fight go by so much faster. So with that, that's 2 more arcanas down. Also, now that Fuka has her persona, she agrees to join the team as our new navigator. Then we get introduced to Theurgies, but because this is a tutorial on how to use them, I'm forced to use Yukari's. But other than that, I won't be using them until my party gets more useful ones, aka ones I can actually use. But onto a more important matter. Because I did Elizabeth's request, I unlocked the fusion for Huapo, which is good because not only do I get Augilao, a better fire type move, but I also also get Fire Boost, a move that will be useful for the rest of the run. I also hang out with Yukari during the evenings, so I learn both of her characteristic bonuses. And now with a buffed up Huapo, I face the Hierophant arcana. This boss doesn't resist or null fire, so I'm able to hit him without the need of Fire Break. So with a Racunda followed up by Aguilau, I'm dealing 240 damage per hit with Makoto and around 40 with Junpei. Also because I did Yukari's evening hangouts, her SP cost for media is at 1 SP, which is pretty damn good. As for the Hierophant, well, he isn't doing much. His signature move, Doomsday Doctrine, is annoying at best, because it has the chance to cast fear on my party. But other than that, he has light magic, so he's nothing to really worry about. However, the next boss I was a little worried about. First off, it nullifies fire, so I have to use Fire Break with Makoto, giving up a turn of attacks. But it can also charm the party, and if you played SMT before, you know how annoying this ailment can be. I even bought accessories to lower the chance of being charmed, but that did fuck all. Luckily, that was the worst it can do, because for some reason, I got really lucky and it busted out its diorama early on into the fight, so it couldn't heal anymore. Plus, Fuka's Theurgy was giving my party the effects of Heat Riser, so a single Aguilau from Makoto dealt around 400 damage per hit, with its defenses down. So a fight I thought was going to turn into a slog, now got turned into a pretty simple one. Now I have to deal with Junpei's emo phase because he's not the leader. Anyway, here's a shirtless hippie. And right before the next exams, I max out my academics because I just had that dog in me, what can I say? Then the true reason behind the Dark Hour is revealed, because Mitsuru's grandpa thought he had that dog in him, but it turns out he was on fraud watch, and he didn't have that dog in him, so that pissed him off and he made Tartarus. Pretty simple explanation really, but because the truth is out there in the open, everyone is angry with everyone else. And I'm just here trying to game, man. But because this is an anime game, the obligatory beach trip was inevitable. But everyone's happy again and the vibes have been restored. I should also mention Ken, so here he is. But at the beach we learned that in order to rid ourselves of the Dark Hour, we need to destroy the 6 other shadows. This won't bite us in the ass later. I should also mention Aegis. So here she is. But once I get back from the beach, I fuse Sati so I can get Miragi on. I don't think I even used it once, but it's better to have it just in case. Also, this dog's a Persona user and that's pretty chill. Sadly, I can't use him until after the next boss fight, but until then, I game at the arcade and feed random ass stray cats for fun. Then on the night of August 6th, I face the next boss. But uh-oh, shirtless hippie and the actual personification of the nerd emoji lock me and my team in the underground bunker, which I don't know why. Their whole goal was to stop us from defeating the shadows. Seems counterintuitive to keep us in the same room as one, but whatever. The Chariot and Justice Arcana fight is, well, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I can't make this fight sound interesting if I tried. Like, the boss doesn't even activate his gimmick until the very end of the fight. I don't know why, but because of that, the whole fight is very boring. I literally follow my strategy for every single one of the fights I've done so far, while guarding occasionally with the character that tells me to guard with. It's boring and a slog to get through, only for them to split at the end of the fight where they both have 1 HP. Anyway, remember social links? You know, one of this game's main gameplay features? Well, I'm finally going to start doing some. By some, I mean 2. The main one I want to focus on is the Star social link with Hayase, and the other one I decided to do was I was going to finish the Magician social link with Kenji. I also get my final team member for my lineup, that being Koromaru. So I now have 3 party members who can attack. Then while grinding in Tartarus, Junpei learns Fire Break, which to any normal person is just a wasted move slot. But my demented ass means Makoto can spend more time attacking. Speaking of attacking, I get to fight with this shirtless hippie. I hope he doesn't catch a cold or something. That would just be sad. And while I do this, Junpei fumbles at talking to a woman. Then I learned that the shirtless hippie was indeed wearing a coat, so at least he's staying warm, even though I can't see it. Also, Ken officially becomes part of the team now. Remember him? Well, you're about to very soon. Speaking of remembering, remember Aegis? Well, I didn't, until she joined school, for some reason. Anyway, my final teammate is this stinky homeless guy, so that's pretty cool. Hope nothing happens to him. Then Junpei fumbles so hard with a woman that she ends up kidnapping him. Or does that mean she loves him? I don't know. But what I do know is that he's not available to participate in this boss fight, so Akihiko is back on the team for now. And I'll admit, Junpei wasn't the only one that fumbled hard, because the persona I created for this fight, the minion, was weak to electric attacks, which is the type of magic the Hermit specializes in. Luckily I had Hua Po in my back pocket for safekeeping. Now even though Koromaru replaced Junpei in this fight, it doesn't mean my strategy changed at all. I just make sure to guard with Yukari whenever I can. The Hermit's gimmick is that it will charge, and if you let charge up completely, its attacks will do more damage. But after the first charge, I was somehow able to deal enough damage with just Koromaru and Makoto to stop it from charging completely. This fight was definitely the longest so far, with the entire VOD of the fight lasting over 30 minutes. But other than Yukari's weakness to electricity, my only problem was Koromaru running out of SP, due to his only fire move being Miragion. Its most powerful move, Terra Spark, wasn't even that powerful thanks to Akihiko's debuffs. So other than this fight taking forever, it wasn't harder than any of the rest of them. Also, Junpei is still fumbling, even after the girl kidnapped him. But enough about Junpei's love life, because after brushing my dog, I unlocked the ability to lower all foes' accuracy and evasion at the start of battle. Then after that, I make sure to grind up until I hit level 54. That way I can fuse one of my favorite personas, Decorabia. And not only do I get Augidine, as well as Invigorate 2, I also get lucky because Invigorate 2 changes into Invigorate 3. But I also get the Theurgy Best Friends because I made sure to pick up a Fornius at the beginning of the game. After that, I finish the Star Social Link with Hayase, this will come in handy later, as well as I watch Kinji get cucked by his teacher, before finishing up his Social Link. Again, this will come in handy later. And before the next boss, I put the skill card single target boost on Decorabia, to boost Augidine even more. And now with my jacked up Decorabia, I face the Fortune and Strength Arcana. And now even though this is the second to last Arcana fight in the game, it's probably one of the easiest. In order to attack the Fortune Arcana, you first need to beat the Strength Arcana. And during the fight, Fortune will be spinning a wheel to either raise or lower everyone's stats or HP. But with Decorabia, I'm dealing around 400 HP per hit, and that's not including my newly learned Theurgy that allows me to concentrate and charge at the same time. Now I'm able to deal around 1000 HP per hit with that combo. But after the Strength Arcana gets knocked out, the Fortune Arcana becomes available to attack. And it's very weak. It does null fire, so fire break is needed, but it's nice enough to buff everyone's magic attack. So with that, but before it goes down, it spins the wheel one last time and lands on the Grim Reaper. And even though Fuka says nothing happens, something definitely happens. But with one more Augidine from Makoto, the shadow goes down. And so does one of our teammates. May he rest in peace. But at least now I get the ultimate personas of Akihiko and Kin, even though they won't really help me out during this challenge. But what really will help me out during this challenge is my newly fused Decorabia with Concentrate and Marakunda. And even though I lost Invigorate 3, I luckily had enough garnet saved up to buy it at the antique shop. Also, I had no idea Invigorate and Regenerate could stack. So let me know in the comments if you knew that SMT fact or not. But I got rid of Fast Heal for Invigorate 2. Now all that was left was to play video games to raise its magic stat. I also stocked up on Soul Spinach so that I never run out for the rest of the game. Oh yeah, Fuka's bully / friend leaves school, and that causes her to awaken to her new persona, which means bear Theurgies in battle. Also at this point in time, there's not that much to do, other than wait until the next boss fight. So I work on getting my persona to max magic, and then I face off against Jin and Takaya. And I mean, look at how my man stands. Dude would unironically say actually while pushing up his glasses. It's crazy. This fight kind of exists. Like, it's not hard, even though nerd emoji over here resists fire, but now that Decorabia can concentrate, it makes things go by so much faster. It also helps that Junpei is the one using Fire Break, because he deals the least amount of damage. The worst thing these guys can do is strike Yukari or Junpei's weaknesses, but even when that happens, it's not that bad. So Jin the Mouth Breather goes down first, and not too long after that, his lover boy Takaya falls too. Then they jump off the bridge and get married or something, I don't know. Now onto the Hangman. The fight starts off with the classic Hangman statues. Everyone loves them. They nullify everything but their weakness, unless you have Fire Break like I do and sweep them out with fire. Now onto the big man himself, and he nulls fire, so you gotta use Fire Break on him too. Also something I forgot to mention, but Junpei is also the GOAT at raising my party's defense. Like, look at how little damage my guy is doing. The fight doesn't start getting hard until after the giant statue gets defeated. After that, he'll use the move Grim Transcendence to get more moves. He'll usually end off his turn with either a charge or concentrate, so when he does that, I guard with the entire party. But other than the magic walls he sets up that I have to break with Koromaru, the guy isn't that bad all things considered. And I finish him off with a concentrated Augidine for the win. Now the Dark Hour will end for good. But it turns out Akutsuki did a little bit of trolling. Just a tiny bit of tomfoolery. He lied to us about the consequences of destroying the shadows. Now Nyx will rain death upon the earth, or something epic like that. Anyway, Mitsuru's dad gets got, and I guess remembers us. Unlike me, because I forgot about her again. And Akutsuki falls off tartar sauce, leaving more questions than answers. Also, Yukari sees the original footage left by her father and awakens to her new persona. Then I help out Junpei by getting him flowers because he can't stop fumbling with his girlfriend or whatever. Then a new kid shows up at school, and it's very important, and I mean very important, that I do his episode links. But other than that, not much is going for me other than my spinach farm. Well, there is the school trip where Mitsuru unlocks her new persona, and after that, Junpei's girlfriend, or friends with benefits, I don't know, never really explain what she is to him because he dies, but then she dies giving her life to him, and that causes him to unlock his new persona. So now all my teammates have their ultimate personas. Yippee! Then on the next full moon, Aegis confronts Ryoji about being Thanatos, the god of death, and it turns out he is. But more importantly, it turns out she put him in my body. So that was a little odd, but what's done is done. At least now I have an option for when Nyx comes. I can get rid of Ryoji and forget everything about the Dark Hour and live in peace until Nyx comes. Or I can fight Nyx. So after a month passes, I give my answer to Ryoji, that I'm going to fight until the very end, locking me into the good ending. And because I finish all Ryoji's episode links, he gives me the music box. And now I can fuse one of my favorite personas, Saturnus. Then Ryoji tells us that Nyx will be waiting atop of Tartarus on January 31st. So all we have to do now is wait until that final day. Until then, I start off by fusing Saturnus. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the whole reason I chose Augie in the first place was because I really wanted to use him. I just think he's cool. But yeah, this is my final setup for him. Pretty nice, huh? After Saturnus, I decided to make a buff and debuff persona. So I fused Satan, and this is how his final moveset looked. Then on the 15th, I completed Junpei's episode link, and got the item to fuse Cert. So this was my final setup for him. And just as a lucky charm, I took Huapo and Dekorabia into the final fight with a new updated moveset. I also used up all my stat cards I got from exams in Tartarus to use on my party members, so their personas are pretty buff now. And now onto the first fight of the final battle. The guy you can hear breathing from a mile away, Mouth Breather Jin. Jin still resists fire, so I need to use Fire Break from Junpei. But this fight more or less is just one long ass cutscene. Like, I'm dealing around 700 damage with a concentrated Inferno, plus Koromaru has Debilitate, but once he injects himself with steroids, the fight is pretty much over. Other than a pretty powerful Megidolon, he has nothing left. So on to Takaya. Now Takaya is more annoying than anything else, because he has a move that steals all your SP. Luckily, Fuka just counteracts that. Also, now that Yukari and Junpei have their ultimate personas, they can now use their Theurgies. Yukari's is specifically good because it can concentrate the whole team. But other than the annoying SP draining move, his Theurgy also drains your HP and SP. But I've grown an ass ton of spinach, so after eating some, with one more Inferno, Takaya was knocked out. Now on the Nyx. And guys, if I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, Nyx was actually pretty easy to defeat. Like, I don't think I could make this fight sound badass if I tried. What happened was turn 1 on every arcana change, I would concentrate with Makoto, debilitate with Koromaru, then if need be, I would fire break with Junpei. Then, I kid you not, with one single Inferno, I was able to deal enough damage to get on with the next arcana. This, again, I kid you not, happened all the way up until the final arcana, Death. Obviously, Junpei and Koromaru would help tear down its HP while doing this, but again, most of the time I would just one-shot with Inferno. And even in its true arcana, the only really scary move it had was Apocalypse, and Yukari's whole being counteracts that. Obviously, in its final form, I wasn't able to one-shot it like the other phases, but I was still able to deal massive chunks of damage to it. Then, with one final Inferno, Nyx was defeated. Or so I thought, because you can't really beat death. But remember, I have that dog in me, so I was able to fly up into the center of Nyx and use my power of friendship abilities to seal Nyx away with my last bit of strength. Soon after that, graduation day rolls around and everyone remembers the promise we made to meet up on the rooftop. And as they come rushing up the stairs, I close my eyes one final time, and the credits roll. So, can you beat Persona 3 Reload with only Agi? Nope, you can't do it, because in the tutorial of the game, you are forced to use Bufu. But hey, this challenge was pretty fun at least. If you liked the video, leave a like, or maybe even subscribe if you feel like it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day. 立ち向かう勇気君にもらっただからゆっくり